Welcome back to Digits here at WSJ Live. I'm Simon Constable. You are looking at video footage of the Google car, and Google itself is stepping up lobbying efforts to get it approved across the US. We've got Amir Efrati of the Wall Street Journal joining us now from San Francisco. There he is in the monitor to tell us all about it. Thanks for joining us. This is fascinating. It's a propeller head car.
Well, what you see on the top of the car is actually a spinning laser box, and it shoots 1.5 million beams in all directions, I think per minute, actually per second. And that helps the car find out everything that's going on around it. There's also a radar and all kinds of sensors, infrared sensors. There's a camera that looks for lights and shapes. This car is really, really a smart car, and yeah, go ahead.
And that's great, but they've got to get it approved to go on the road, right? I mean, if you're a driver, you need a license, but if there's no driver,
Yes.
then how do you say that it can drive?
Exactly. So Google announced this initiative in 2010. They'd actually been testing these cars out on the roads in California for, I think, more than a year before they actually announced it. But they were testing it kind of secretly. And that's because in California there was no law authorizing or even prohibiting this. This is just not something that's been considered by transportation law until now. Google knew that eventually it was going to have to create a legal framework for this to actually become legal on the roads. And so as soon as it announced this initiative, it actually also started lobbying for legislation to be passed so that these things would be legal.
Now, one of the things, somewhere they've been lobbying a lot is in Washington State, and it says the first half of 2012 they spent about $9 million, and that's about double the rate of 2011 when they spent just close to 10.
Well, so in Washington, D.C. right now, that's on the federal side. That's federal lobbying spending. They have a wide range of lobbying efforts in Washington that has to do with antitrust, privacy, all sorts of other things. But they have been lobbying the DOT because it's expected that we're going to see some federal regulations related to autonomous driving in the future. So they want to make sure they lay the groundwork for that. But most of their lobbying efforts have actually been on the state level. They started in Nevada. It was a very, very important place for them to start and get this legislation passed last year. It's a very small state, a lot less visible than California, probably a lot easier to pass legislation. They did it very, very quietly, and they figured that it would be a great place to start, do it very quietly, get the legislation passed, and then all the other states would want to join in. So as soon as they got the legislation passed in Nevada to authorize the testing and eventually the operation of autonomous vehicles, Florida called, California called, and now those two states have also passed legislation.
Okay, well, we shall see what happens and how soon these things will be available. Thank you very much, Amir Efrati of the Wall Street Journal out in San Francisco, and you can read more on that on WSJ.com. In the meantime, that's it. That's Digits for now. I'll be back at 4.